Is it even possible to separate the art from the artist? Do boycotts of media even accomplish anything? Do we as consumers get any say in how we are pandered to? Today, in this video, I am going to be answering all of those questions. Well, I'm going to try to. I'm going to try my best. Watch until the end to see if I mess it up. Hey everybody, thanks for joining me here. Today we're going to be talking about everyone's favorite magical war crime franchise that hurts to think about now. The Harry Potter series. It's probably no big secret to us all that it's a tough time for Harry Potter fans right now. The franchise that they hold near and dear to their hearts is constantly being dragged through the mud based on constant reminders that its very essence is drenched in bigotry. And believe me, I get it. I read the books as a kid, I watched the movies growing up, and now when someone mentions Harry Potter to me, I go, oh, I don't know him, sorry, not familiar. At this point, we're all familiar with how the franchise's author, J.K. Rowling, is addicted to cannibalizing her reputation by being Twitter transphobic. Instead of fighting for the rights of all women, her selective feminism shows how corrupted her morals have become. And that's well known, but the other corners of the franchise aren't doing too hot right now either. Right now there is a movie and a video game coming out, and wouldn't you know it, they're both controversial as well. Now about this video game, its strategy is to distract you with pretty visuals and hope that you just don't learn anything about the story before you pre-order it. The villains of this game are the goblins, who are notoriously designed around several harmful Jewish stereotypes. Everybody say thank you, JK. And these goblins are fighting to have wands and rights and to overthrow the status quo. To do so, they have to team up with the evil wizards, the Death Eaters. And I don't know who doesn't have the media literacy to pick up on this, but the Death Eaters are a pretty clear metaphor for a certain World War II era German-based political ideology that was really, really bad. So the game is having these two on the same side, and it's sending some heavy messaging. And it's pretty hard to just view this as a whimsy goblin rebellion and their bloodline purity friends helping them. Additionally, the game advertises to its audience that you can have a house elf. No, thank you. No, I don't want one. Please don't give me a servant creature.
A helpful house elf named Deke helps you discover vivariums that allow you to nurture your own menagerie of magical beasts.
What is it? Deke isn't sure. Only one way to find out.
I don't think anybody was watching Dobby in the second Harry Potter movie and going, yeah, I wish I had one of those. No, I think normal people were rooting for his freedom, and the game thinks we were looking at him like a pet up for adoption. Between all of that and the game's developer having a Gamergate-style anti-feminist YouTube channel, I think we can all agree that this game has a darker depth to it than just a fun flashing lights RPG. Moving away from the video game, there's also a movie coming out, the third sequel of the Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them series. After the original movies came out, J.K. Rowling decided that she needed more relevancy beyond being a dick on Twitter, so she made a movie about a magic zoologist and his fancy little pets. And people went, yeah, this is pretty cute. I like these. So J.K. responded with, guess what? I'm going to make 5 more of them, and now it's about World War II. And all those people went, why? Now, I am paraphrasing here, but I believe this movie's premise is about an evil wizard trying to subjugate the human world because he hates their war crimes. And because this is a World War II era movie, there might be a certain war crime that starts with the letter H that he might be referring to. And the heroes are trying to stop him to keep the wizard world a secret. But in doing so, they are making sure that that war crime happens without intervention. And I don't know how we're supposed to root for that. I know that's a very cherry-picked plot summary of the movie, but either way, I don't know how we're supposed to watch that without making that connection if it's set in World War II. Hey, I'm the villain, and I think we should use magic against the humans, but I'm gonna connect it to a real-world tragedy that happens in the real world. Hey, I'm the good guy, and I'm gonna stop you. Except the real-world tragedy happened in real life, and there's no canon reason why we would ever allow that to happen. Hey, remember when this franchise was about fantastic beasts? What happened to that? Additionally, it's a big selling point of this movie that it is the first one in the series that a staple character of the franchise is a gay man, something J.K. Rowling randomly shouted out one time after the books were finished. Some critics are using that as an excuse to say that we should go see this movie and show the studios that we support and love LGBTQ representation, but it turns out that the representation in question equates to 2 lines of dialogue that were designed to be cut out for foreign releases. What a turnout we have. We have an author being a bigot online, a game that reinforces insanely offensive stereotypes, and a movie pandering to gay audiences that's also about making sure a genocide happens. Not a great track record for the Wizard franchise, gotta say. And if you're a Harry Potter fan watching this, I'm sorry. I genuinely am. I know it must suck watching this franchise that you love and care for, and be constantly reminded that it is rooted in these ugly ideals and just concepts. But it's not really something that we can ignore anymore, and it does deserve to be discussed in this light. But that brings up the question of how do we do that? Can we separate the art from the artist? This story is going to sound fake, but I promise you that it's real. Back when I was a senior in high school, 100 years ago, my high school film class took a trip to LA in order to tour film colleges. It was a fun trip, even though I didn't end up going to any colleges there because A, they were really expensive, and B, downtown LA smells like self-tanner. But on this trip, we were lucky to get a behind-the-scenes tour of Universal Studios Hollywood, the theme park down there. And we had a tour guide that took us backstage around different areas of the park in order to show us what the production behind these things were like. And this was the time where it was just a few days before the Harry Potter world was set to open. So we got an exclusive tour of the final stages of preparing the Harry Potter part of the park. And on this tour, our tour guide was way more transparent than I thought he'd be. This guy was having a bad day or something because he did not hold back. We were on the Diagon Alley part of the park with all the wizard shops, and the tour guide was telling us, yeah, these buildings were created from a 1-to-1 recreation from the movies in order to represent the authenticity. And then he took a moment to pause, and then he says, there's actually a funny story about that. This tour guide tells us that the designers of the park met with J.K. Rowling in order to go over plans. And these designers were saying, yeah, so we plan on keeping the entrances of the buildings pretty similar to the movies, but on the inside we're going to expand things in order to accommodate more guests, but we're going to make sure that the integrity of the rooms stay the same. And J.K. Rowling said, no, you don't get to do that. Allegedly, J.K. Rowling was so adamant that no parts of these buildings would be changed in order for kids to go through what they saw in the movie. She would not let any of these buildings go through any kind of redesign in order to accommodate a theme park attendance. She said these buildings are going to be exactly like they were in my movies because I said so. And the park designers were like, Joanne, we can't do that. Some of these buildings in your movies are 3 feet wide. We need to accommodate more children or else we're going to have lines flowing through this park. But J.K. Rowling wouldn't budge. She demanded that nothing change. And they had to go with her vision because she still holds that much stake in her company. She will not allow anything that she doesn't want. And this tour guide seemed to be kind of annoyed with that. So he told us everything. And that permanently changed how I viewed J.K. Rowling, even before I knew about her Twitter presence. I am so thankful for that tour guide. Whoever you are, thank you so much. I need to get a shirt that says I was radicalized by my Universal Studios tour guide. So yeah, that stuck with me. Even as a kid, before J.K. Rowling went bigot mode on Twitter, my view of her work and the media of Harry Potter had forever been associated with her being pedantic and difficult over this Universal Studios thing. From that point on, I could not separate her work from this insider knowledge that I had about her. When people bring up this debate, the art versus artist question, I think they expect it to end with a yes or no answer. And that might be why this debate is still ongoing and remains unresolved. I strongly believe that there's no universal answer, and it does depend on the artist in question. Because art does not follow any universal codes, associating artists with that art probably is not going to be so cut and dry and will be similarly challenging. Dr. Seuss wrote some charming-ass children's books, but he also drew insanely racist caricatures. I think it's totally fair to judge this Seuss guy as a person, but because his books have an audience of children still with their baby teeth, I don't know if it's fair to remove all of his books from the library just because of his negative views of people. When the movie Baby Driver came out, the editing and the camera work blew me away, and it instantly became one of my favorite movies. And now I can't watch it. Like, it has two despicable humans in it who I can't support. And the editing and camera work of this movie haven't changed. It's still something I love, but I personally can't look past the inclusion of these actors, so I don't want to watch this movie anymore. And it is very important to acknowledge that when we engage with any kind of Harry Potter media, we are still paying money to J.K. Rowling because she is still so financially relevant in this franchise. We can't exactly separate the art from the artist if that artist is still pulling in revenue from the art if we support it, whether or not we agree with her position. Basically, art versus the artist comes down to a personal choice because association is something that our brains do on a personal level. I really do think it's about what we as individuals decide, right? What line do we draw? What can we excuse? And do we want to engage with this media despite knowing that the author is still benefiting from it? So what does this mean for us as people? Like, what can we do about this media franchise that has corrupted itself to the point that it's at? This is when the topic of boycotts come in. Like, would it do anything if we decided to withhold supporting this game or this movie? And would it do anything? Like, is it going to affect the corporation behind it? And the answer is yes. Of course it would. Boycotts are famous for working because they withhold financial reward from companies when they pull stuff like this. And these corporations care a lot about money. Like, we are just walking, talking wallets to them. But there are a lot of talking points in place in order to discourage us from even thinking about boycotts, and let alone if they might work. Critics will argue that we have to watch this movie in order to support gay representation. And gamers will say that we have to buy this game in order to support the developers that worked so hard on it. As for the movie side of things, there are tons of amazing movies with gay representation in it nowadays. I think Hollywood and other movie studios know that there's a good audience for that. And if Fantastic Critters and Where to Catch 'Em flops, I'm pretty sure they're going to know it had something to do with J.K. Rowling and not so much to do with Dumbledore having 2 lines about being gay. And for the gaming side of things, I wish that game developers got paid based on units sold. But if they did, I think the gaming industry would be a lot more lucrative than it is right now. The developers got paid way before this game is ever going to hit the shelves, and they're probably already moved on to their next project. So crying about how not buying the Goblin game is going to hurt like the people at their desks working at this job, that's not true, and we shouldn't even listen to that point. Vote with your wallets is kind of a cheesy saying, but at the end of the day, I think there is a lot of power that goes behind what we financially decide to support. There is evidence that the studios are listening to crowd reactions, and we might actually have the power to impact some change depending on whether or not we support these things. And if boycotting is how we do that, I think it's necessary to consider that as a legitimate option. So if you are serious about standing up to JK's actions and supporting the trans people who are affected by her negative rhetoric, don't watch Fantastic Beasts 3. Don't buy Hogwarts Legacy. Don't even buy Lego Harry Potter, because supporting anything tied to this franchise is paying J.K. Rowling and giving off the idea that we want more of this franchise that is rooted in bigotry. I don't know how many times I have to say that. It sucks, but it's true. And I promise I'm not here to tell you what and what not to like. You can still like parts of the Harry Potter franchise. I still do. I grew up on this stuff, and I do like parts of it still, even now, but it's just hard for me to ever think about that without associating it to Joanne's legacy. Hey, remember those Survivor's Guilt skeleton horses? That was a pretty interesting concept. Oh, yeah, Joanne's a bigot. My favorite movies are the third and fourth ones because all the actors are awkward and gangly, and I think that's pretty funny. Oh, yeah, Joanne's a bigot. Hogwarts would definitely be shut down in real life. Like, you got a monster dog on the third floor, a spider in the forest, a tree that kills people, a snake in the pipes. No 11-year-old should have been admitted to that school as a death sentence. Oh, and also Joanne's a bigot. But now is the time where I stop making this silly little video and you get to decide what you're going to do moving forward. Are you going to buy the Harry Potter game and play it in secret? Or are you going to watch this movie and then fight with people on Twitter about how good it was? I don't know. It's up to you now. I've done my part in giving you the information, but now you get to decide how you're going to move forward knowing what I've told you. And it is an option for you to engage with Harry Potter and just not tell anybody. Like, if you catch the movie on live TV and you just want to sit through it without judgment, you can. And on the other side of the spectrum, you can try to ratio J.K. Rowling online, and that's another option you could try. And at the end of the day, that part is not up to me. I've decided how I'm going to carry forward, and you get to make your own decision about that as well. I would consider everything behind what you're going to do in regards to supporting or not supporting this franchise. But yeah, I think I've said all that I needed to say. Okay, a bit more on the house elf. Why did this game think that it would be a selling point that we wanted our own Dobby? Why are they saying, hey, spend $70 and this hairless little man will call you master? What? Who wanted this? Who is this game for? I'm going insane. But yeah, that's the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching me rant about Harry Potter. I hope it was entertaining for you, and if it was, please support me by liking the video and subscribing if you haven't, so YouTube doesn't destroy my channel. Oh, that's sad to say. If you want to support me with a few dollars or so, you can always donate to my Patreon, like these beautiful people have. Every night I put on my little sleeping cap before bed, and I pray that every single one of these people finds $1 million on the street tomorrow. Probably won't work, but I'm hoping that the good vibes I put out there help them in some way. Thank you all for being so cool. I love all of you. And if you would also like your name tattooed on my video forever, the link to my Patreon will be in my little description. Why did I say little? Thank you all for giving me design tips in the comment section of my last video. I haven't been able to do any of them because I usually spend my days lying on the floor with my head swimming with all of this internet discourse and can't go shopping, but I promise I'm getting on it, and it's gonna look good in no time, hopefully. I hope you have a good rest of your week. Take care of yourselves and others because I told you to, and also for yourself. I love you lots, and goodbye.